السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله وبه بدينا ولو عبدنا غيره شكينا وحبد رب حبدينا. اللهم صل على محمد كل ما ذكر ذاكرون وصل على محمد كل ما غفل عن ذكره غافلون. Our talk today, inshallah, can be considered a sequel to Maulana's talk last week. Maulana mentioned, amongst other things, about the events of Rajab, the liberation of Aqsa at the hands of Salaahuddin, rahmatullah alayh, which I will elaborate on. Maulana mentioned that our children don't even know who is Salaahuddin. The implication being that our adults do know. So the adults can sleep because we do know what I'm going to talk about. Inshallah, we'll wake you up at the time of the khutbah. First, understand the situation, because no man comes in a vacuum. 1,000 years ago, the world of Islam was in a terrible state. Before I continue, fulfill, please, not because I said, but the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Please, with the love of your Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, please come forward from your depths. Allah reward you all. Resurrect us in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So 1,000 years ago, Islam was in a terrible state. The majority of the lands of Islam, to start off with, was under the rule of the Shia. Not only did they make the life of the ulama, to start off with, difficult, not only did they make the life of the ordinary Sunni Muslims difficult. For example, we take it for granted that now when Ramadan is going to be coming, that we will be forming our Tarawih Salah, Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his companions. But the Shia do not believe in Tarawih. Not only do they not believe in Tarawih, when the Shias ruled, they banned Tarawih. It was not legal to perform Tarawih under Shia rule. Just one example of how life used to be. And they ruled almost all the lands of Islam. Never mind our religious practices like Tarawih, the Shia was so petty, that certain vegetables, which were narrated to be the favorites of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, because they hate her so much and they call her unclean adulteress, these vegetables were even made illegal. It was illegal to buy and sell and eat these vegetables solely because of the hatred of the Shias towards the Ahlul Sunnah. As if things were not bad enough, then occurred what is known as the Wars of the Cross, the Crusades. Europe saw this as the perfect opportunity that Islam is at its weakest to conquer the lands of Islam. Starting in France, the Pope called for war against Islam. The armies of Europe gathered and they marched through, conquering one Muslim country after another until Al-Masjid al-Aqsa itself was conquered. And wherever they went, massacres, atrocities. Baytul Muqaddas itself, Jerusalem itself, when they conquered the city, they massacred every Muslim. And their own historians say that our horses went through up till their knees, until the knees of the horses in rivers of Muslim blood. This is recorded not by Muslims, because there were no Muslims left. The Muslims were completely massacred. This is recorded by the Christians, and not just recorded, but they say it as a boast that this is our victory, this is what we did to the Muslims. So never mind the Christians. On the one hand we have the Shias, then we have the Christians coming upon the Muslims, massacring the Muslims. And then those few 1-2 cities that were left in the hands of the Sunnis, like Damascus, they betrayed Islam and they aligned themselves with the Europeans. Comparable today, like our rulers, the Sisis, the MBS, the Saudis of today. Situation was black. Not the kuffar, but the Muslims themselves said, this is the end of Islam. There was no hope. This is the end. Where do we see anything, any light? To go into full details, the Crusades itself, the biography of Salaahuddin itself, and the many lessons that we need to point out. Honestly, we need at least a 2-hour workshop, but so Allah forgive me for cutting out what is important, skipping through. The Crusaders would then rule Palestine, the whole Middle East, for close to a century. For close to a century, no salah was performed in Masjid al-Aqsa. If you think today is bad with the Jewish rule, this was about 90 years, no salah was performed in the masjid. No adhan was called out in the land of Palestine. No Jumu'ah like this that we take for granted. Certain ulama took up the effort of calling people and making them alert to the effort of deen. Most notably, Qadi Ali bin Tahir al-Sulami, rahmatullah alayh. Cut a long story short, a group of Sunni Kurds conquered Egypt, the headquarters of the Shia. A young Sunni, Yusuf bin Ayyub al-Tikriti, became the Sultan of Egypt. Up till that point, this Yusuf bin Ayyub, like any youngster, or not any youngster, but many youngsters, was a very heedless of his deen person, living a very sinful life. But when Allah made him Sultan, he felt very small and ashamed, and he made tawbah. He made such a tawbah that his life so changed that few even know his name as Yusuf bin Ayyub. Most people know him, if you know him, by his title, Salaahuddin, the one who rectified this deen. He gave up all the sins that he used to be involved with. What kind of a tawbah did he make? From that day till the day he died, not one salah did he perform alone. Every salah that he performed till the day he died was always in Jama'ah. From that day till the end, he never missed tahajjud once. From a sinful lifestyle, he became a friend of Allah. And he felt obligated that Aqsa is under the control of the Christians. I must free the masjid. Just still a youngster, 90 in our words, youthful indiscretion. He marched straight to Jerusalem, and the Christians gave him a hiding of his life. So he came to realize proper praying is needed. He went back, complete reform. First thing is consultation with ulama. The government of Salaahuddin was essentially a government of ulama. I don't know if you recall, but a few years ago, some person lacking in brain cells who went to fight on the behalf of ISIS, wrote a letter that just as the ulama opposed Salaahuddin, the ulama of South Africa also opposed ISIS. Complete utter nonsense. The government itself of Salaahuddin was a government of ulama. I can mention names, but sadly, names of ulama don't mean much. Ulama of the past don't mean much to our public anymore. But I can mention at least, hopefully you have heard the Muhaddith Ibn Asakir. Salaahuddin constantly in his company. Salaahuddin training the army, equipping the army, preparing them for the jihad. And to do all this, he made a truce for the Christians in order to prepare that we need a peacetime while we're doing this preparation. So he had a truce with the Christians. So in the day, the Muslim army is preparing to fight the Christians, while at night, what does Salaahuddin do? Patrolling the army. Have you read your Quran? At least 2 Jews, up to 4 Jews at night. The army of Salaahuddin is spending the nights in recitation of the Quran. Salaahuddin himself had mentioned about ulama. Today we are too busy. I'm busy in my studies, or I'm busy in my business. Here's an alim is giving a talk, especially of hadith. Salaahuddin leaves everything and he attends the gathering of the alim. He's the sultan of the country, but more important, he felt, and especially when he learns a new hadith, when he comes back and he meets his ministers with tears in his eyes. Before he starts government business, let me narrate to you these words I learned today from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once somebody said, you're always going on upon hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this and that. In all occasions, but how about, there's one occasion that you've never heard hadith. Salaahuddin said, what's that? He said, how about in the battlefield? Salaahuddin immediately ordered that as he's charging into the battle, someone must sit on the horse, riding alongside him, reciting the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that he's got this in his record, that in every possible situation in his life, he's been listening to the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not just listening, but obedience. Today you are so scared. You remind brothers, this is the command of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you get very harsh responses from people who are supposed to be dini people. This was the kind of life he was. His ibadat, his preparation, and all this kind of, when this nur of ibadat enters your life, the akhlaq. From his youth, when he used to be heedless and only worried about his own pleasure, how then does he change? Very caring person to this extent. There was an occasion when some bandits, they captured a Christian woman's baby. And she was crying, and her friend said, go to Salaahuddin himself, he will sort you out. Most likely these bandits were Muslims, but he helped this Christian woman against the bandits who had taken this woman's baby. He could not bear to see anybody grieve, even a Christian woman, against bandits, even if those bandits were Muslims. He acted against those bandits. These days the government, they set up, for the highway robbers, they set up a little office and they set up gantries, whereas in the time of Salaahuddin, highway robbers used to be crucified. That was on a micro level, his preparations. On a bigger level, stage 1, that Muslims must have proper belief. The Muslim world was under Shia rule, and Salaahuddin first started his campaign in wiping out the Shias. and the law of the Sunnah became supreme again through the efforts of Salaahuddin. Number two, once the Shias were taken care of, those Sunnis like Damascus, like the Saudis of our time today, who betray Islam and prefer the Europeans in the West over Islam, they had to be taken care of. And he dealt with Damascus and all the traitors to Islam. Once he had united all the lands of Islam from Libya up to Armenia, down to Yemen, the Muslims were now strengthened, but there was the truce which prohibited him from now going directly to Masjid Aqsa. Those brothers who have come late, you can perform your sunnahs. Khutbah will be immediately after the talk. It so happened that amongst the Crusader chiefs, there was one chief, Reginald of Chatillon, was especially hateful towards not just Islam and the Muslims, but he was vicious in his hatred to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He violated the truce, he attacked Muslim travelers, and his hatred for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because his fortress was on the Red Sea, he built a navy which went and sailed towards Medina. They disembarked near Medina with the aim of conquering Medina and taking out the body of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from his blessed grave and dragging the body of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and disgracing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he almost got it right. With great difficulty, the brother of Salaahuddin defended Medina against the Christians. But now with these two violations, Salaahuddin announced the truce is over. The Christians have attacked us. The truce is over. And he sent an announcement to all the Muslim countries, send your armies, we are now marching towards the masjid. And in particular, he took a qasam that this Reginald, he will not be executed. I will kill him with my own hands because he has insulted my Nabi over and over. Nobody's going to kill him except me. I'm killing him with my hands. Even if the Muslims had been defeated thereafter, but for me, this is a great accomplishment of Salaahuddin, rahmatullah alayh, because it had been hundreds of years that the Muslims had been split. And this was the first time in hundreds of years, Muslims from even those places that he didn't rule, Morocco, armies came from Morocco. At that time, the Moroccans used to accomplish more than just kicking a ball. They used to fight in the cause of Allah. Armies came from Morocco, Turkish Hanafis, Kurdish Shafis, every madhab, every language, Arabs, Yemen, people of Makkah, Medina. For the first time in centuries, the Muslims were united and came in one army to fight the enemies of Islam. Something that hadn't been seen in centuries since, and again centuries up till now again. Long story short, the Muslims win a great victory at the Battle of Hittin. My Muslim brothers, Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I so wish that you had a sense of reality. What excites you today? Men with their thighs open, running after a ball. That excites you. Turkish series, TV series, which is 100% fiction, that excites you. The reality of our forefathers who fought and shed their blood for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that doesn't excite you. Just try and picture in your heart that scene at the end of the Battle of Hittin, when the Christians were defeated and the Muslim cavalry was circling the Christians, going around and around and calling out, La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, circling the Christians and filling them with terror. absolute terror the Christians were filled when hearing the word of Allah, because that time takbir wa Allahu Akbar was from the heart. We didn't need like today in South Africa, we need a chorus. Takbir, brothers, say takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. I don't know where that comes. And our talbiyah. Time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, everybody says talbiyah on his own, it comes automatically. Now you need a conductor. My brothers, labaik, Allahumma labaik. It's like no reality in our ibadat these days. Baitul Muqaddas is conquered. Time is now running out, so there's about 6 years more to cover, but we'll have to cut that out. But Salaahuddin had accomplished his major mission. He had united the Muslim countries. He had destroyed the Shias. He had destroyed the Christians. And the Masjid al-Aqsa, for the first time in almost a century, Salah was performed. The Masjid was cleaned out. And that first Jumu'ah in a century was done in the Masjid. There's no time to go through every point, brothers. From this you can learn this, from others you can learn this. Up to you. Make some effort. Study the biographies of our predecessors. Study the biography of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many of us know? Never mind Salaahuddin. Salaahuddin is nothing compared to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so many of us, we don't take an effort to learn about the biography of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 6 years after the conquest of Masjid al-Aqsa, the battles are coming to an end. Salaahuddin tells his doctor that from all these years that he was spending on the battlefield, never at home, he was never a roof on his house, so he was in the tent. Year after year, he was just fighting jihad after jihad. He tells his doctor, I've got lots of qada of Ramadan because of all the fighting of traveling jihad. His doctor tells him, you are diabetic, you will not make it. He insists, I have to perform my qada. He starts fasting and he falls into a coma as his doctor had warned him. Abu Ja'far is sitting by his side reciting the Quran. And what a beautiful death he has. When Abu Ja'far reaches Wallahu alladhi la ilaha illahu, Salaahuddin suddenly snaps out of his coma. He opens his eyes for a few seconds and he says, true, this is true. Wallahu alladhi la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illahu. He immediately closes his eyes and he leaves this world. Such a beautiful death is attained when our life is dedicated to obedience to Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Two things I'll close off with. The Minister of Finance of Egypt used to cook the books. He used to keep two separate sets of accounts, one real and one to show Salaahuddin. But not with the intention of what our ministers do, that corruption, because like I said, his whole government, they were all ulama and awliya. Because Salaahuddin was so generous, as soon as he saw a cent, he had to spend it on the poor, spend it on the hungry, spend it on the mujahideen. So to keep the government functioning, the minister used to keep one account that Salaahuddin is nothing, we've got nothing to spend, and another account to build hospitals, roads, etc. So Salaahuddin ruled everything from Libya up to Armenia, down to Yemen. That's about 10 countries. But when he died, this beautiful death I described, his secretary had to go out to the people and ask people, leave me alone. Salaahuddin has not left enough money for his own kafan. So generous was he. Every cent spent in the cause of deen. Allah give us a sense of it. Sorry, just one more thing I'll mention. This Crusades was the time of Imam Ghazali, and those brothers who have not made your sunnahs, please perform your sunnahs. This Crusades was the time of Imam Ghazali and Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, they lived during these times. Great saints, and Allah did not choose them for this task. Allah chose this youngster was very sinful in his young days, to make tawbah and become a wali and free the masjid. Whatever our status might be, the doors of tawbah is still open. All of us, every single one of us, we can become a friend of Allah. And let's take inspiration. One of the ways of drawing closer to Allah is through inspiration of our forefathers in Islam. Learn about them, and this will inspire us, inshallah, to also draw closer to Allah.